Yes, I did.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:01 PM. This is a special meeting for Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
I will, Mayor. Tim Hale, are you on the phone?
Here.
Stephanie Nowers, are you on the phone? I'm expecting Dee McKee, possibly, Madam Mayor. Robert Yunt.
Here.
Moki 2.
Here.
Dimitri Fonoff.
Here.
Ron Bernier, are you on the phone?
I am.
Thank you. You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. And if everyone stand and join us in the pledge, please. And Deputy Mayor, newly elected, would you want to lead us, please?
Yes, ma'am. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on our agenda is audience participation. We do have a sign-up sheet, but even if you didn't sign up, we'll give you an opportunity. So the first person that signed, and the only person that signed up is James Harms. Yes, come forward, sir, and the clerk is going to turn the mic on for you. And so if you just state your name for the record, sir, and then we'll give you 3 minutes.
I am James Harms. I live on Woods Drive.
Okay.
I'm not technically certain if this is the proper venue, but I figured I'd start somewhere.
Okay.
I've lived there for 35 years, roughly. This last 2 years, roughly thereabouts, the road maintenance crew has decided to drive halfway down the street and back up, leaving 2 houses, mine and another, on the end. They're saying it's a private driveway. Anybody that drives up there can see it's a street. It has been for the whole time. We have a compliance case going on next door. It's been filed. For some reason, it seems to be a little murky somehow. And I'm just concerned how I'm going to address this. Am I supposed to plow the neighbor out and go halfway down the street? It's pretty discouraging after all this time. They can't just drive to the end, turn around, and go back out. Nope, they go halfway and then beep, 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 halfway down the street, and it's ridiculous. And so I've talked to everybody, code compliance, started way back before they started clearing for the power lines, because I seen they're allowed to know what it was. Then I call the road maintenance people because vehicles are in the right of way. It's pretty obvious that if you got a house right now, it's S curves. And the people that are doing the dismantling, they got that condition where if they get a toaster, they got to take it all apart and lawnmower blades off, all this stuff. They're moving across the street in parking rigs. So now it is literally S curves. There doesn't seem to be any motion. I think there would be a law that you didn't park in the street, not just an ordinance that you went through 12 months of maybe contact people and whatnot. Now, I might be old school, but it never was a problem in the past. And now we're out there trying to snow blow, do whatever. We have to come and go like everyone else, and we paid our taxes for the whole time. It's not a big ask. And I just want to make it documented somehow. I've talked to people, and it's always the same thing. oh, you need to talk to that department or those guys, and it just doesn't move forward. And like I said, I don't know how to do this place down here. Where to start? You're supposed to get a lawyer or what to speak for you?
Okay.
And I would just like some directions or something to be known. Now, I did talk to Tim Hale.
Mm-hmm.
He's our guy up there, and he's been punctual, answers the phone, which is pretty unusual nowadays that he does that. And he assured me that they will plow to the end of the street. But at the rate the wind comes up and it's narrow, you couldn't pass cars on the street. And it's
Right.
supposed to be a 2-lane thing to the end.
Okay. I think maybe you mentioned it at first, but what street are you talking about, sir?
Woods Drive.
Wood Drive. Okay.
And
Right.
we've had, I think, Copper Roots had done it for like 25 years, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2 had a contract years ago, no problem. And now we have a problem. I think somebody's got issues going on, and I'm being made out to be the guy that pays the penalty because of maybe the contract went south or something. I don't know what it is. Something's going on.
Okay. Already.
So
But
I
this
just
was,
want to come and say,
and yes, and this is a good place to come and say.
and as far as the neighbor thing goes, Kendra over there at Code Compliance is supposedly on it, but
Okay.
it seems really slow.
Okay. Already.
And I can't communicate the way you guys are all doing it, electronic, because I don't do that.
Okay.
My God lives in heaven, not in the cloud.
Okay.
So-
All right. Okay. All righty. Thank you for coming. Anyone else in the audience that would like to participate in audience participation is welcome to come and address the assembly. Let the record show that Assemblyperson McKee has joined us at 6:09. Okay. See, Caleb, do we have anybody online that? Caleb, do we have anybody online? I don't, oh, okay. I didn't see him shake his head. So. All right, thank you. So one last time, anybody that, and we'll give all of our invited guests opportunities to talk, or you can talk now too if you want to, but
We just
you,
got one. Audience participation. Caleb
oh, Caleb, okay. I was looking over here at the people. All right, whoever's online, if they will go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Sharita Napper. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Perfect. My last name is Napper. I'm calling in because I reached out to Jason, I believe his name is, yes, Jason Ortiz, a few months ago. And because I saw an ad for a car junk removal program that the borough had going on.
Right.
My husband and I own a junk removal company. And we wanted to see how we could participate in any program that the borough has. And he said that this would be a great assembly meeting to join to share information about our business.
Okay, all righty. Do you want to state your name and your business and how some of our staff can get in touch with you, please?
Absolutely. My business name is Heavy Lifter Hauling, HEAVY. LIFTER, Hauling, HAULING, and we are at heavylifterhauling.com. Our phone number is 907-414-7956. And some of the ways that we can assist is by cleaning up property, private property, commercial properties. We've done move-ins and move-outs. We have done several things, moving large items. And what Jason was alluding to is that there is a program to help clean up some private properties that you guys were looking to work with nonprofits. And if there wasn't some nonprofit participation, that you may be looking into contracting companies, and we would like to put our name in that hat.
Okay, all right. Well, I think you've done that tonight, so thank you for calling in and letting us know. Was there anything else you wanted to make us aware of?
Well, this is my first special assembly meeting attending. Is that, should I stay on the entire time? Should I email somebody afterwards, or what's the best way to go about the next step?
Ma'am, this is the borough clerk. You can either stay online and listen, or you can go online or stay on the phone and listen, or go online to the borough's website to listen, and then probably contact the borough later.
Okay, sounds great. I will stay on the line. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in. Anyone else online, Caleb? No? Okay. One last chance for anyone here. Okay, seeing no one, then I will close audience participation, and Borough Manager Mike Brown, I will turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am going to turn it over to Jason Ortiz. Jason is our Development Services Manager in the Planning Department, oversees permitting, code compliance, right of way, et cetera. So he's going to present on about 4 or 5 different topics to provide the Assembly and the Public Community Council some updates on some of the recent initiatives since our last meeting. With that said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ortiz.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the Assembly. Jason Ortiz, can you guys hear me good? Yeah, okay. And, let's see. Let me just adjust this for the screen here really quick. All right, so the last meeting that we had, August 8th, we discussed, and I'm going to sit, hopefully this is okay for me to sit. I'm going to kind of talk this way, guys. Last meeting we have August 8th, we went over a variety of different issues. We listened to the recording and took everyone's comments and all the tasks and try to put together a comprehensive list of as many things that we could do, and also take into consideration like everyone's comments and just in the working fashion. One of the things that started that the Assembly passed and got into fruition pretty quick was the junk car removal program. Junk car removal program ended up working out, whereas it was a program that had $50,000 funded. In the end, what the program did was remove 250 vehicles. That program, we had a signed agreement right around mid-September, and then right around the 25th of September, we had an additional person contracted that signed on. So we had 2 contractors that were removing vehicles from the borough. And it was so popular, it ended on October the 10th, October 30th. Assembly member Fonoff had suggested as part of the program, he would like to see a sampling of all the participants that participated in this program. So we did just that. Our staff reached out to 10% of all the people who participated in the program. And these are kind of some of the overall results. Most people heard about this program through word of mouth. Social media was second on how they heard about it. Overall satisfaction, 72% of people sampled were satisfied with the program. 76% of people did not encounter any issues. It was pretty smooth sailing for them. Overall satisfaction, with participants was pretty good. And then some of the highlighted comments were right here. And again, there was a question asked if the public felt that the program provided enough compensation for vehicles, and 84% said yes. So again, 250, I think it was actually 260 vehicles that were removed from the borough in a pretty short time. We did have quite a few people that reached out to us. Their phones people were calling. We had Chickaloon Tribal Council reached out and wanted to know more about it. So there was a lot of interest in the program. So that was the first thing. Did the Assembly have any questions that I can't before I go on to our next topic?
Okay, is there any questions? Yes, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Couple of questions. Where did the bulk of the cars go to? Was it to one or two different yards or compounds?
I think it was pretty much a half. I think, I don't have those exact figures with me right
Just
now,
an
but
idea.
I want to say it was pretty half. I know that, we had two different contractors, and then initially one was taking a bunch, and then right after the other one signed on, it was just a haul. People were calling. It was a really popular program. So as fast as they can get them, but, definitely can follow up with you if you want to know specific numbers.
Nope, that's okay. I was just curious. So it went to a couple of yards. Okay, and then the next question would be, this went really well and really fast compared to what many of us thought it was going to be. So I guess it probably shines a light on the need. Does the borough have any numbers on maybe how many of these type of cars are out there just sitting around randomly? Does code compliance maybe have a number? Are we talking about 250 more, 500, 1,000? Any sort of Moki might be more accurate, but is there any sort of idea on how many might be out there so we can think about if I'm already leaning toward, I think we need to do this again, but if you have any numbers, so thanks.
And through the mayor and assembly member Yant, we do not have numbers. There's a lot. I mean, I've gone out on code compliance. I go out frequently with all the code compliance officers, and we've encountered places where there's hundreds of vehicles. So doesn't mean all those people want to get those vehicles removed, but there's a lot of vehicles in the borough to be removed. So don't have a number for you. Don't apologize.
That's
Borough
fine. Thank you,
manager,
sir.
did you have some comment?
Yeah, so through the mayor to the assembly, a lot more, to be very vague. But what we are going to have a topic coming up where we're going to talk about junk vehicle recycling. I think when we talk about a program, we don't want to just haul them to a location in the borough. We want to figure out how to get them out of the borough. So to Mr. Young's point, it went to 2 yards in the Vine Road area. Just for the record, for Butte Community Council, I don't see him here tonight. None of these vehicles went to the Butte because that claim was made last meeting. But they did go to locations that are in the borough, right? So we didn't get rid of them. We just consolidated some. So we will talk about that in a bit because we are working with a firm to try to come up with a program that would actually create a junk vehicle recycling program. It's going to take some work. It's going to be a heavy lift. But I think when you think about long-term sustainability, that's going to be the better approach. And it very well may include the borough providing some funding to incentivize it and or make it work. So we'll talk about that if we can wait just a few minutes for Jason to get through his, and then we'll invite Jeff Smith up because we did have a preliminary meeting and we're expecting a follow-up. And we can give you a little bit of detail. We don't have it fleshed out yet, but we recognize that's probably the direction that we're going to need to go in.
Assembly Person 2, did you have comments or questions?
I got comments, but and it just follows up exactly what Mike was saying. I mean, hooray that we got 250 cars, which quite honestly, that's nothing. That's nothing in compared to how many cars are out there that needs to be moved. And what I would tell you that every single car that comes to the Mat-Su Valley stays in the Mat-Su Valley. And so to haul them out of this yard and go put them in this yard, that's really not the answer. The answer is exactly what Mike said, is that we need to recycle that car. And I thought, whoa, what happens if we had a foundry that actually melted the car down and made rebar? That's all they make is just rebar. Everybody buys rebar in our state, huge, and it all comes out of lower 48, but it's all made out of cars that we sent down there, maybe, if the price of metal is enough that they can ship it. So I think recycling is that's what we need to think about. Moving the cars, hooray, but really that's not putting them in one spot to another is not the answer. The answer is recycle or put them on a ship to Seattle, something.
Assembly Person McKee, did you have a comment or question?
I have a question, and I've got brain fog. It might have gone right over my head. What did it cost us to do this?
Go ahead, sir.
So through the mayor to Ms. McKee, the assembly appropriated $50,000. That was about $200 a vehicle is what the borough contributed to move 250, 260
So
vehicles.
that's what we ended up paying was the $50,000.
Correct.
Okay.
We went to the full amount of that appropriation.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions by the assembly? Yes, Assembly Person 2, go ahead.
So whenever a person had a car towed, was it always a $200 fee, or did some cars $100 fee and then some another fee?
Go ahead, sir.
Through the mayor to Mr. Tu, we allowed up to $200 per vehicle. I think in some cases you had one of the contractors charging more than $200 depending on the location of the pickup and the value of the vehicle they were retrieving. Obviously, they're looking for scrap, catalytic converters, whatever may be on their value, and the location where they're towing from. So we allowed for that because this was the first time and we wanted to get it out of the gate and see what we had. I think one contractor charged $200 every time. The other one charged more in some cases. But we allowed that transaction for more to be negotiated between the contractor and the resident. The borough was not in the middle of those negotiations.
Go
So
ahead,
you
sir.
paid 200, no matter if whatever, that was your max cap, it's 200.
That is correct.
Assemblyperson McKee, further question?
Were there other kinds of costs associated with that? We got the 200, but how about staff time and blah, blah, blah? Was that figured into the 50,000 or what in addition to that did it cost us?
Through the mayor to Ms. McKee, I would characterize that as insignificant. I mean,
Would you?
basically we signed a contract with 2 vendors and we
Yeah.
allowed the folks to call them directly and for them to work through it. We purchasing received the invoices and made the payments based on what was submitted to them. Yes, there was some staff time associated with that, but fairly minor in the big scheme of things. Obviously our permitting staff, right away staff had to develop some flyers and communications, public affairs, but it wasn't something that became a full-time job for that period of time by any means.
Okay, thanks.
Any other? Yes, Assemblyperson Dolan. Go ahead.
Question to Mr. Ortiz. On the survey, as you can see, there's, you said 72 extremely easy, but there's 20% of easy. That means combined between 2, there's well over 90% of people who thought that this process was very easy. And I like how we designed the aspects of it where we didn't have to reimburse and fight with the customer and then invoicing it was directly. I really like that process of things. Would you share the importance of continue this and possibly even increasing so we can continue doing this process?
Go ahead, sir.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Fanoff. I mean, I could tell you the public, I mean, and outreach amount of people that reached out. We had quite the amount of people that have called and expressed and were disheartened to learn that the program was done already in such a quick time. So I think there's a need for it and there's a want in the public. It's just a matter, I guess, of funding and who wants to pay for that and how that program rolls out. I think Jeff Smith is going to talk more about long-term solutions on some of those things here later on in the presentation.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Forgive me if this has already been answered, but did we set a limit per household or per piece of lot 3?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the program, the way the policy was written, and we did have a policy so that if anyone came back, it was written for how we were going to dish out this program, but it was 3 vehicles per parcel anywhere in the borough, including city limits, could take advantage of it. We did, I know Russ in purchasing did keep track to make sure that, things were good. We had VIN numbers, we had forms, everything was produced in policy. So we kept, it went really fast. So we were able to keep track of things pretty well.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Anyone online have a question? Okay, Jason, go ahead then, sir.
All right. So next, one of the big takeaways, I think there was 3 assembly members who said they really would like to see a blueprint or some policies or some sort of standard operating procedures regarding code compliance. So I did work together with code compliance and we did draft this preliminary standard operating procedures, community councils. There are some available out there if you'd like to take a look. They're on the table out there when you walk in. But basically, this document, the one thing I do want to preface and let you guys know is if we were to implement something like this, it would be a very big change from what we're currently doing. it was really difficult in talking to many different other like municipalities and cities. Like it's really difficult to set a prescriptive set of guidelines on how you take care of code compliance cases. If you were to ask the trooper right behind me if you have a rigid policy on how you're going to deal with cases, they would tell you no, because there's so much discretion that is involved in everything. So I did draft this, and the first paragraph kind of outlines on how discretion and can be adjusted for professional judgment and given situations such as weather and so forth. So just to remind like assembly members, like we have a couple feet of snow on the ground right now. Some junk and trash cases could be, they are non-existent right now because the snow is covering everything up. So as the wind blows and what happens and the types of complaints, things ebb and flow in that respect. But we did draft a standard operating procedure that kind of talked about how we're going to take a case, the types of cases we're going to receive, how cases will be investigated, the initial site inspection done within 10 business days, and then what that details as far as the initial site inspection, some of the initial actions that will happen, and then the continued action. In a best case scenario, the way this is written, within a year's time and after 12 citations, being 1 citation a month, we would then be referring a case over to law for a potential injunction. And this is very, very preliminary. Like I said, I talked to Manager Brown, I talked to everyone about this, and we just want to emphasize, like, I really would like the Assembly's feedback on this, because again, if we implement something like this, it will be a big shift on how we currently operate. So there will be no variations. Everything's going to be the same. Doesn't matter if you have an 85-year-old lady who doesn't have much money and her means are low, and we're going to be issuing the same tickets to the same people, and everything's going to be the same across the board. So we could do something like this, and it's here in a draft form with the draft watermark, so that way we could make any adjustments or take feedback as needed. Does any of the Assembly have questions or anything regarding that? Or I don't know if you guys wanted to had time to review it ahead of time.
And it would have been nice to have it sent out, as I don't think anybody here has received it prior to this. And I know people are trying to go get it, so hopefully we have enough copies for everyone out there. Is there lots of copies left out there? Okay, good. So, but it wasn't, yeah, go ahead.
So there was no intended to make a decision on it. What we wanted to show is that the Assembly expressed an interest in developing something. So we
Okay.
put something together to start the conversation.
Okay.
And Jason and I did talk a little bit about this and how you exercise that. I think folks would like to see this nice, tight timeline with specific dates. And I think that's great in concept or theory, but it doesn't always play out that way. The other thing that the Assembly should, consider, we only have so many code compliance officers, right? And like right now, and I'll talk about this at the end of the meeting because it has nothing to do with community cleanup. But we're going to probably be pulling some of those folks off to do enforcement on right-of-way encroachments related to private snow, right? We're using the same crew that we have currently to run junk and trash cases. So if you think that we should potentially apply more resources to this matter, this issue, I'm happy to talk about that in the upcoming budget cycle, if that's something that you're interested in. Frankly, the last FTE, full-time equivalent that we added to code and compliance, as I understand it, was before my time, was based on the Assembly's desire to add a code compliance officer. So if you think that we should apply more resources, we can certainly talk about that, and we can look at that as we build the FY25 budget. So something to think about. At this point, I would say just take this and digest it. If you have thoughts, you can reach out to Jason directly or me or George Hayes. I think any of us, and we'd be happy to talk more about this. And if you want to come in and meet with staff, I would also encourage that.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, and maybe if it could be, passed on to the clerk so that it could be sent out to the Assembly too. And go ahead, who is online?
envelopes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this is Tim. I just I saw this in the packet and I looked it over, and I just want to thank the staff, Jason and anybody else who worked on it, the manager, for drawing this up. It is definitely a step in the right direction, I think. Obviously, we need to have some flexibility, for discretion and those types of things, which I saw kind of working their way into the document there, and I think that's a good thing. But I just want to thank staff for drawing this up for us. It's a great start. And as to what the manager was just saying, I for one would like to see more resources in the code compliance division. So.
Well, Tim, I know you're online and you can't see us, but we're happy that you have it, but nobody else can figure out how. So maybe we all should be remote or something. So
it was on the Granicus I legislate. So
Yeah,
Okay.
we did provide, Madam Mayor, we did provide it to the clerk's office yesterday for distribution, so it should
Okay,
have made it to the package.
She's looking for it. But
And I
that's good.
apologize if it was out there. I just didn't see it. I'm going to look again. So I apologize. Yeah, I don't see it, so
There's
I'm not
nothing.
sure. I'm glad it was out there for you, Assemblymember Hale.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Oh, yes, Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
Yeah, I got one. It just occurred to me, you're talking about this 85-year-old lady out there who has no resources and her yard's a mess and all that kind of thing. And she is going to get notices and maybe even have her property repossessed. And then I'm thinking about the person who can get 3 junk car removed from their property for nothing. There seems to be a problem there. I don't know exactly how to express the problem. I'm looking at junk cars getting removed, and that's okay, and I like that. But is there any, do you see what I'm saying? If you've got junk in your driveway, I mean, just stuff all over your yard, isn't somebody going to come forward and say, well, I don't have a car for you to remove, but I sure in heck would like you to take some of this, 3 junk cars worth of stuff off my property for nothing. I don't know, Jason, does that ever occur to anybody, or do you think anybody's going to do that? I would probably do that if it were I. I would be the 85-year-old lady saying, come get my stuff. So.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember McKee, we're actually going to get into some of that discussion about private property cleanups and a couple things down here. So
Okay.
It is definitely on the topic we discussed on August 8th, and it hasn't been forgotten. I think Sharita, the lady that called in, I took a call from her. I've been keeping contacts and writing everyone that I've been speaking with down. So depending whatever direction the assembly goes, whether it's private contractors, whether it's reaching out to community nonprofits, whether it's the diversion program, which Nick will talk about, all these different things together collectively are
Yeah.
just possible ways that we can mitigate and attack some of these issues like the private property cleanup you're talking about.
Yeah, quite frankly, I'd rather have an old junk car in the lot next to me than, bags and bags of dog doo-doo and dead bodies and orange peels and stuff. I mean, seriously, but I'm glad you're thinking about it. Thank
I wanted to express a couple concerns too. Miss McKee touched on one of them, but along the same as, some folks are lucky enough to get some cars removed because they check the box of us picking winners and losers. We chose cars. Well, what if we didn't choose X, Y, Z, right? So that was worrisome to me. The other thing that really worries me is I don't think it's fair of the assembly. I'm not sure who it was that expressed wanted to see some policies and procedures. I think that's fine, but I don't think it's fair of us on the assembly to pin the staff or put the staff in a position where they have to visit a site within 10 days and do this by this. We have an awesome staff. We need to give them discretion. I worked with mentally handicapped kids all through high school. I can tell you, I've went out to code compliance issues in my district where I can tell you that they weren't mentally all there. Well, I can tell you from my point of view in my district is I think we need to be very lenient on them. And our staff is awesome. I don't know if you guys have ever done any ride-alongs with them, but I think we need to give them the discretion to operate. And then kind of touching on what Mr. Brown said is, in the wintertime, we have other priorities, right? With snow and hazardous roads and things we need to inspect. So I just want to put it out there that I'm a little cautious of the assembly trying to pin the staff into any sort of corners in the future. So that's it. Thanks.
Further comments or questions by the assembly? Okay. Do you have more in your report, sir?
Yes, Madam Mayor,
Alright.
there's two more things.
Okay.
All right, so next up is what you see on the screen here. We were asked by Assembly, and I believe there was a couple community councils that said they'd like to see more. That's what's going on. We created this public-facing code compliance dashboard, which is ready to launch pretty much anytime the Assembly would like to launch it, or if that's the decision. But what it shows really quick here is all the code compliance cases. On the left-hand side where you see me hovering the mouse, it shows the types of cases. So if I were to click like junk and trash right here, you'll see that 48% or nearly 49% of the cases that we're dealing with in the borough are junk and trash cases. And if I were to click on it, it automatically just shows that. The idea of this dashboard would be to allow the public to scroll around and see where the code compliance cases are. And since Assemblymember Yunt talked about his district, we'll pull up Willowa right here. And so what this shows is a very, very high level. We do have to be careful because we do receive everything we touch at the borough for the most part is accessible to public, right? But we have to be able to watch what some of the information, because sometimes that includes people's phone numbers and details. What I did here is clicked on one case, and it shows we have 1 notification and 16 inspections. I click on this one here, and it shows that we have 1 notification, 1 inspection. So these are different cases, and these are just regarding junk and trash. What this is going to allow is it would allow the public a lot more access to see what's going on in their neighborhood. But some of the feedback I'd like to get from the assembly, and it doesn't have to be tonight, you guys can think about this, but is what would you like it to show? We can really have it show more, we can have it show less. But some of it we have to be mindful of what we're displaying on there. But this is a tool that we can use. We can put this front facing and let the public see where code compliance cases are available. So.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
So,
Madam Mayor?
Go ahead, sir.
No, Mike can go first.
yeah, so through the mayor, what I was going to say quickly is the question came up at the last meeting about more transparency around what cases are active and what the borough's doing about them. So what we attempted to do is display a way we could create a public-facing dashboard. My direction to staff has been we will not make this public until we have a conversation with the assembly about it to make sure it's what this body thinks is appropriate or not. So I'll leave it at that so that you're clear that we have not turned this on. This is not something we're making available. What we're showing you is what could be if there is a desire to have a public-facing dashboard.
Okay. Oh, I thought he just said, does he have, Assembly Person Hale, do you have follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. So I know that there has been some expression of a desire for something like this from folks who want to know, who want to track what has been going on with a problem property in their neighborhood, and I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, we have privacy issues that we have to kind of be careful of, but it sounds pretty cool overall. The only thing that I would add is that one thing that I would like to see is being able to, for folks to be able to report junk and trash issues on the Mat2 problem reporter. So that's just a comment that I have there.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I sure hope we don't start pitting neighbors against each other. That's what this looks like to me. This gives me grave concerns.
Further questions or comments? Okay. We're ready for you, sir,
All
whenever
right.
you are.
So the last thing that I was going to talk about is our cash for cleanup program, formerly known as the, what do we call it? What do we call it, Mike? The trash for cash? Yeah, so cash for cleanup is what we're calling it now. So what this idea was is something we pitched about of reaching out to nonprofits and seeing if there's a desire for nonprofits. So what we did is our staff and development services sent out a letter to about a little over 1,100, every nonprofit in the valley. So every nonprofit in the valley, we received a letter with the survey, very comprehensive survey. And the survey was basically asking them, do they have any desire to help to clean up properties? If they did, what kind of resources would they need? What kind of training would they need? What's appealing? What type of cleanups do they think they can take on, like small, medium, large scale projects? And then one of the last questions that we did ask, just to see if there's any support out there, because oftentimes we're trying to find support for when we get that 85-year-old lady that's out there trying to figure out what resources are available to her. We do connect people with Connect Matsu and some that are available, but one question we asked was, are some property owners lack the means or ability to clean up their own property? Would your agency be willing to clean up properties with non-borough resources? So it was just a question to go out. So went out in a survey. We're going to give it about 3 weeks. We were looking at it this morning. We had about a dozen responses, and 11 of the responses said they're all for it and they'd love to clean up and all over the borough. So there's 11, mind you, there was 1,100 plus that were sent out. We only got back about a dozen, but it's been less than a week. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have some great results. And that'll at least tell the assembly, hey, there's a big interest in nonprofits wanting to do these types of cleanups. And so I think that is all I have, unless anyone has any questions for me directly.
Jason, was that cleanup on public right-of-way streets
That
or
is-
private residents if they wanted to have a nonprofit come on their property? I didn't quite understand that.
Yes, yeah, sorry I didn't explain that. So that would be cleanup on private property. So as we discussed in the previous August 8th meeting, there was little over 280,000, I think it was, in that cleanup allotted for FY24. Some of that money was $100,000 that the assembly allotted, plus money from monies awarded during an injunction through the courts, that we received. And so that money is pulled together. And there were a lot of comments from people, and people said, well, 288,000, that's really doesn't go that far to do private property cleanups. So what we did is we took that as a task, like how can we leverage resources to get more bang for your buck? Can we utilize the support of nonprofits? And I believe Assembly Member 2 said he wanted prisoners to work. And I think that's what Nick's going to talk about the diversion program, about all the different things since August 8th, what we've been working on behind the scenes to put as potential programs that we could maybe prop up and then have further discussions on.
Okay.
Assembly Member 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Assembly Person. Or McKee, did you have your light on first?
Yeah, just briefly, because Jason, you were talking about the prison folks doing that. They got a lot of time on their hands, and these do, and it's obviously nonprofit. And I think that my husband used to work for the prison system in Fairbanks, and that was something that they actually looked forward to because they could get out and actually do something worthwhile. I think that's something that should be hugely pursued. So just want to make that comment.
Assembly Person 2.
I'd say great job, Jason, especially putting out that flyer and asking the nonprofits whether they want to participate or not. And then I would say even getting 11 back, hooray for you. That's 11 more companies that said they will help. A year ago, you had none. So hooray, and hopefully it keeps on going. And good job.
I'd like to ask the attorney, what kind of liability, or would we have limited liability? Say I asked for the nonprofit to come on my property and, one of the kids cut their hand or broke their arm or, So where does the liability come from that? Is that the homeowner's responsibility, or because we coordinated it, we have some responsibility? So, and I know I'm sort of dropping this on you, but
That's fine.
okay, thank
You know, part of what we do in our office when we're talking about developing programs like this is we consider that,
Mhm.
right? So when you heard about the vehicle removal program,
Right,
right? So the way that was structured was the person who had the vehicle and the person who was towing the vehicle, they made the agreement.
right.
We helped pay the bill, either paid the entire bill or part of the bill, however that worked out. But we
Mhm.
weren't involved in
Uh-huh.
that transaction. And so we could potentially set something up that way.
Okay.
Obviously, we would be involved a little bit more because we're talking usually about cases that might have code enforcement involved. There may be an injunction already involved. And we would put them in touch with the nonprofits and encourage them to work with the nonprofits,
Mhm.
maybe for a delay in the case or a delay in some fines or something like that.
Right.
And then let the nonprofits work directly with them. We would probably try to structure it that way.
Mhm.
I don't have a good handle on that. I'm kind of thinking, on my feet here.
Right.
But that's typically how we would want to do it for that very reason, so that we wouldn't be, stuck if they threw away, there's something out there on the lawn that looked like it was trash, but it had
Right.
value.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
like with the vehicle removal, if heaven forbid they towed the wrong car
Mhm.
and crushed it, right? They took the working car instead of the junk car, right? The way that was structured, it wouldn't come back on us because that was an agreement between those
two
folks. And
parties.
even though we're helping pay the bill, that does not mean we're responsible for their actions.
Okay. All right. I could just envision some, lots of what ifs. So anyway, Jason, did you have some parting things to say? No?
No, Madam Mayor, I am done. If, unless anyone has any questions, I'll
Okay.
still be sitting back here for
Mike, did
questions.
you want to say something?
No, I just really quick, and I probably should have led with this, but what we're doing is taking what we heard in the conversation from the last meeting. We have a whole list of things we heard people say, the community councils, the assembly, and we compiled all that. So what we're doing is giving you updates on some of those things that we took as task to go work on. And even though some of them, such as this public facing compliance dashboard, might not be popular, there is no silver bullet here. So what we're doing is showing you what's possible. We're kicking around different solutions. I think it's safe to say that I heard enough no's on the public facing dashboard for now. But we're just going to keep bringing ideas forward that help to chip away at this problem. So Nick's going to provide the borough attorney is going to provide an update on the diversion program, because there have been some conversations since the last meeting. And then we'll come back and talk about junk vehicle recycling. We want to make sure we leave enough time at the mayor's
Right.
discretion to allow the community councils to say something too. So we'll talk diversion, we'll talk junk recycling, and then we'll kind of go from there. So we have two more updates, and then we'll kind of go into more of a general conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of the diversion, I had a couple of meetings with the district attorney here in Palmer, and then a staffer from Juneau with the district attorney's office regarding the concept of the program. They're very receptive. They think they would have, and actually it turns out that there's probably more people that could participate in it than we might be able to adequately manage or use. They were saying their misdemeanor numbers right now are about 6,000 to 8,000 a year, and they would think that a third of the people might qualify for some type of program like this. And so on their end, it was low level offenses, first offenders, not major offenses, not repeat offenders, but
Sure.
maybe driving while license suspended for failing to provide insurance or something like that, or a minor theft or something like that. So we did talk a little bit about the structure, and we also, through my office, reached out to DOC. We did get contact information from DOC. We were unsuccessful in getting a meeting to kind of talk about the program, but we did get an initial, yeah, that'd be great. We would love to partner with you and participate in a program, and they would have offenders as well. We'd have to talk to them about what exactly the program would look like.
Right.
And as we talked about it and then talked a little bit internally, the ball is squarely kind of in our court now, mostly administratively, because we need to come up with a program that would track who's coming in, when they're supposed to be here. And then one thing you got to watch with diversion programs, before I worked here, I spent 7 years as a prosecutor, and we had a diversion program. The one thing you got to watch out for is people saying, oh, I tried to call. Oh, I tried to email and they didn't get back to me. Oh, I showed up and they weren't there. And so you have to have good mechanisms for tracking all of that for a specific phone number that logs calls, a specific email that IT is really good about telling us, oh yeah, no messages came in, no got caught in the filter, or no, nothing came in. And doing that, and then managing and setting up what it is. And then as we started talking about what could be done, it turns out that there may be more uses for diversion programs and or DOC programs than just junk and trash cleanup. I mean, we started talking about trail crews. We started talking about at the landfill, there's always people standing there making sure you're not putting, your toaster oven into the municipal landfill, that it's supposed to go into the, the special or the old box fan and things like that. They call it standing on the wall, I think Mike said. And so at this point, after talking with them, we don't have, framework agreements or anything. We were just talking about the concepts and what they would want to see from us before looking into, writing up the agreement. But the DA's office was incredibly receptive, very excited about doing it, I think. And now the ball's in our court really to really sit down and come up with the structure. I think it was mentioned last time, or at least there's a note. It, like Mike said earlier about a code compliance officer, it may center around budget. It may require a program coordinator to manage, people coming in and going. And then it would also be code compliance and law with open cases. Again, approaching those homeowners who say, oh, I'd love to clean up, but I can't. Well, okay, we'll be out next Tuesday with a dumpster, and we're going to bring, 14 people with us, and you're going to point and they're going to throw it in the dumpster, and we're going to do that until it's done. Because that's probably what it would take to clean up some of these properties. And so what's happened in the past few weeks is I've started to pass it on to the deputy borough manager, because it's going to be cross-departmental, because it's going to involve public works, both probably O&M and landfill, code compliance, my office, and then potentially Parks and Rec if we start to expand the program out to, again, trail crews and things like that. And so I talked to Mike about it briefly, got George up to speed, passed him on a bunch of information to start, looking at how administratively we create a program in-house. What does that look like? How is it managed? What are the job duties? And do that, because we also have to be mindful of things like there are going to be people who are not going to be physically able to pick things up and do things, but they may qualify for the diversion program out of the DA's office. Well, as the government, we have to deal with that. We have to figure out how to accommodate people who may not be able to do that. That's where some of this standing at the wall idea came through. Some people may have skills in operating, maybe a chainsaw or something, maybe not, Mayor talked about liability. That's the kind of thing that makes me go, no, we don't want to hand people a chainsaw. And then, so we are working through it. We are looking into it, and it's going to be a pretty big undertaking. One of the other things we try to do is reach out and steal somebody else's program. Well, Anchorage is no longer doing a diversion program.
Oh, okay.
We did get a contact down in Juneau. I don't think we made contact with them yet about a nonprofit down there that runs a program like that, like a community work program. It turns out that the Alaska court system does have a list for when they sentence people and say, oh, go do 30 hours community work service or whatever. We're already on that list. Both community development and central landfill are on that list. But that list that the court system that we got is so old. It lists the manager of the central landfill, who I think left in 2011. So it hasn't been updated in forever in terms of us. And so we probably also, through this process, reach out to the court system, get updated information to them, because there are still people who are sentenced to community work service, and they're given a list, and it's got all these agencies on there. We're on there in 2 different spots. And I only know who the guy was because I was here back when he left. He moved to Hawaii. So, yep.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. I know it's not really specific, but there has been a fair amount of legwork done. The other thing we did in my office was we looked around. We looked at 4 different prosecutors' offices across the nation about what their programs look like. And again, in terms of looking at a framework and how it might work. Some of the things will be applicable to us. Some of them won't, just because of the way they are. Some of these counties that have sheriff work programs and things like that. So we do have some blueprint kind of roadmap ideas, but there's a lot more to be done.
So does the city of Wasilla still have a program? Because I know Bert had one, when he was mayor. I don't know if they have continued that or not.
I don't know. We will find out tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Yeah. December
Question to attorney. So is it, you were talking about, when you were talking about liability with the chainsaws or maybe operating equipment, I know that seems almost like a little on the extreme side, but how difficult it is to literally, let's say, school parking lots, our parking lot with a shovel to people. I mean, we're paying somebody for that service, right? But then we have people who'd probably love to earn that good credit or whatever that are out there. I mean, for
Absolutely.
that kind of stuff where we need, like this fall, snowfall, we have so many trees that are blocking the roadways, driveways, and things like that. And we're paying additional POs to contractors. It slows them down, things like that. But there has to be people who are going through whatever that will go through right qualification in the system that would be willing to come where it's good for them, it's good for us, and that could do basic kind of work. And we're already technically as taxpayers paying for their bill for to be housed and to be fed, but utilizing ability. And so on the more lower scale things, I could totally see how we could implement those things. And if we're only always going to be only worried about liability, maybe there's a policy in place that, or liability insurance policy that can be taken or something along those lines. But if we're not going to be willing to take it on, we will never be able to utilize that strength. And
I never said we were not willing to take it on. And the thing about a chainsaw, of course, it's an example. Obviously, I actually talked to the borough manager about that, about using pretrial diversion program for extra Sawyer crew, especially now, because he was talking about the trees coming down with the snow. I guess the point of the conversation was there is probably going to be more people that qualify for the program than we're going to use talking about this subject tonight. This subject tonight is about junk and trash cleanup. No, the courts, when they talk about ordering and you talk about citing people, it's very hard to go into court this time of year and get a judge to say, you're guilty, go out and clean up right now, right? Or you're guilty for not cleaning up, because people show up and say, can I have a continuance until June and help me clean up? So this time of year, we're going to be potentially getting people for a diversion program and put them to other work and put them to other things. And so that's all administrative, and it's just somebody running the program. Somebody has to be responsible to check the people in, track their hours, direct their work, oversee them, and just run the program. That's all.
Perhaps we can work with organization or a nonprofit. I mean, if we put this together, me as a freshman assemblyman, and it was a good success, along those lines, we have great mindset when we come in a room and we discuss the best ways with or Jason Ortiz or Manager Brown, how we can make it work. I believe there's that manpower could be utilized in the right way, and I'd be down to help out in any way that I can to make something useful out of it, so that we can next year be here and be proud of it. Some things that we achieved, like we did with this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, further questions or comments? Okay, who are we up to now, sir?
Mr. Smith.
Oh, okay.
So, Madam Mayor, I'd like to invite Jeff Smith. He's our Solid Waste Division Manager. He's going to give you a quick update, kind of like what Nick did with the diversion program around a junk vehicle recycling program.
Okay. Before he starts, I just wanted to say that at the landfill recycling center this morning, EPA was here from Region 10, and we have been awarded a grant thanks to his for $3.5 million to start a compost out at the landfill, and he did very well presenting to Region 10, and they were very pleased with the operation that's going on there. So thank you for what you did there for the borough this morning.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was great. Yeah, glad you were there. Through the mayor, kind of a little update on the junk and the vehicle recycling program. So what we found is that Jason's team did a good job getting a program together where we get some of the vehicles out of private property. But one of the challenges that we face is it's an unsustainable program because it's very costly and very difficult to keep going. So we're hoping to find a better program in the future. And I wish I could stand here and say we figured it out and we've got the answer, but we do have some great ideas. We've been working with one of the largest scrap haulers in the state to discuss with them what are some options, how can we go about getting the vehicles out of the borough. As we talked about, they were picked up and brought to another place in the borough, and they're sitting there, and hopefully they'll get removed at some point in time. But we want to make sure that if we collect vehicles, that they can actually be recycled, be decanted properly, and then leave the borough completely. So what we did is we looked at options with them, like perhaps creating something at the port, or some other way to have a collection point to get the vehicles into one place, collect them in the same manner, what that would look like, how they could be involved, how we could get all of the scrap haulers involved to make sure that everyone's participating in it. And what we are working through is trying to figure out, I think that we determined that the port may not be a sustainable location just because of the distance to get there with vehicles, and then the cost to get the barge up to move things out in the manner that they currently are moved. However, what we think we can do is perhaps find a way to provide some property here in the borough, and or work with the company to set something up where they can actually collect vehicles at a point where they can take them out through their normal operations. So right now, typically vehicles that are taken like we do at the landfill with the BERT right-of-way vehicles, they're taken to the landfill, then ultimately they end up in Anchorage where they're decanted and go on the barge down to the lower 48. We want to do something hopefully comparable if that works out, to get them property up here to do that. And we're trying to figure out how we can participate in supporting that to make sure that it's a venture that would be sustainable, something that would be how we'd help in making that happen. So, I mean, very briefly, that's kind of what we're looking at is just the best way to do it. And
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so through the mayor, to add on to that, so we met with the company. We talked, because they're in the business, we're not. So what we went to them is we offered them, is there potentially borough land that we could make available to you for a collection point that's in the core area that would allow for you to process, right? Where it's close proximity. We talked about Port McKenzie and the land and availability down there in terms of barging to get it out of the state. And then we asked them, because they're in the business and they understand the margins to make this work, what do you need? What could we do to assist you to make this viable? So that's what they took back and are evaluating with their principal to figure out what they might be willing to take on and what that may look like. And I believe they also want the opportunity to talk to salvage yards that are out here and figure out how do they put something together that's more comprehensive. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but we did have that initial meeting and we made those offers so that they understand we're looking to be a partner, not necessarily take it over. And what could we bring to the table as a government entity that would be helpful to make this work for them? So I think those conversations are going to need to occur in the private sector, and then they're going to come back and we're going to follow up and see, all right, what do they think is viable? But we've made offers about what availability we have of land, the port, barging, stuff like that. So, and we did not take off some idea of like some incentive that would help make the margins work. Obviously the volume's there. The question is, how do you put a program together that makes sense, that's sustainable so that they can meet their margins, month in, month out, year in, year out. Because we don't have a lot of detail, but we started that conversation. They're going to have some dialogue here in the next probably couple months. But they were receptive to the idea and like the idea of creating a recycling program as opposed to just moving cars around the borough. So we'll see what that looks like, and I would expect more. I'm excited about this idea. To me, this is like huge. If we could pull something like this off, that would be a really, really nice win for the borough. And for the residents out here. So we'll see where it goes in the next couple months. I know some of these things aren't fast developing, but what we wanted to communicate tonight is we are actively working on these things, trying to come up with some solutions that we can bring to you when we have the adequate amount of detail and when approval is needed. So that's what we wanted to communicate as we went through these 6 items tonight, are some of those key things we heard at the last meeting that we felt were relevant updates for really our community councils in the assembly tonight. So those are the topics that we had prepared to speak to tonight. And I think at this point, it's up to you, Madam Mayor, if we want to go to the community councils or if there's questions from the assembly.
Okay, Any questions currently, Jeff? No, okay. Thank you, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, Assemblyperson Fauna, go ahead.
I guess, will we get small kind of overview about the 2 weeks of the trash we had and how we could improve and what good, bad, and the better things that we could be done? I would like to have an unbiased kind of overview where you could see the success. I mean, I honestly heard a lot of good things, but I just want to see from the how that could be even more smooth but still yet help to clean up the Matsu Borough.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Want to speak to that a little bit? Yeah, okay. So as you know, we had a little over 2-week event at the landfill where we collected material. And I got to tell you, when I saw all the numbers from that one report of 637 and half of them were junk and trash, I'm surprised there's any more junk and trash in the borough. But we accepted a lot of material during those 2 weeks, double our normal numbers. That particular event was a bit challenging. We didn't really have enough staff to operate it. We were closing down, and some of the sites we weren't able to keep up from volume of trash. So it did represent some challenges to manage it that particular way. Other ways to do it, there are other ways that might make more sense. Some of the ideas we'll be coming up with over the next couple of months might be a coupon method where you give everybody a free dump, or it might be a collection of just certain things at a certain time, just things that would be, I don't have any sustainable, programs to offer tonight, but we are thinking through that and what some better options would be. But I think the key is to spread it out more, to make it so that it's not just one giant event, where it's one giant event where everybody comes at the same time. It's just an unmanageable situation without the proper support and help that is really quite costly to get. But I think we can do it in a manner, if we want to continue, in ways that would spread it out over maybe the course of a year, maybe spread it out with a per home type of thing, or perhaps a coupon method, or just maybe a particular item at a time. Maybe it's just refrigerators for a week or something like that. I don't know, there's just a variety of ways to do it that could make it so it's a manageable situation and something that we could sustain. If that's something we want to do for the community, to give that type of service, I think we can do it in a way that will make it work for the borough and for the residents, so that it's a good thing for everyone.
Any further questions? Yes, Mike.
So
go
through
ahead.
the mayor, we will be bringing a couple of options forward. I like the idea of a coupon with more value, significantly more value than $8. I also would like that to be like a year-round thing. To Jeff's point, I'm open to some of those other options. I just think we need to spread it out over time, right? Because my challenge, and I'm just going to be like candid, blunt about it, is I don't want to pay more to not collect revenue. I don't mind not collecting revenue if it's getting stuff received out of the community. That's a good thing. But to pay overtime and all these additional contract fees to accomplish that, I think there's a better way to do that. That's where I look at it just from a fiscal perspective and go, I think we can do that and it would have less of a fiscal impact to the enterprise fund. And I want to make sure we don't get ourselves to a point where we have to take on debt to do some of these capital projects in the future. Because that's one of the things over the past couple of years we've been really good about not doing. And so I don't want to kind of go back to that because we gave too much away, if you will. I think there's a way to do this that would help people out. The people, when I went out there and worked for half a day, the people I interacted with loved the program. They thought it was awesome. They took advantage of it. I saw some, I call them repeat offenders, because there were a couple, I was like, I don't know where you got all those tires, but there's no way that's on somebody's personal property. 5-yard dump trailer after 5-yard dump trailer with the same F-350 towing it. I'm like, that's pretty impressive. So I think, so but no matter what program we have, there's always going to be some element of, hey, this isn't exactly what we intended. But I do think there are some ways we can do some things to make it easier on residents. I saw people that had some really remarkable personal stories about why this event was helpful to them, and that matters, right? There were some really good examples. I won't go into the details because that's not why we're here tonight. But it was pretty impressive just to listen to people talk about that. So I think there's definitely a way to do it. I was really impressed and kind of surprised that a lot of the people I saw coming in were going to C&D, scrap metal, tires, brush, it wasn't MSW. It wasn't the municipal solid waste. It wasn't organic household waste. It was really scrap and C&D, stuff like that people had accumulated over time that they were pulling out of their yards. In some cases, their garages, some room in their house, bird cages. I mean, I saw all kinds of stuff. But it was really remarkable to me that that's a lot of what we were talking about. And to Jeff's point, I think there are some ways we could, maybe we do some scrap metal or appliances or different things that then don't just, because it was interesting too to see people bring in and have to go like 4 different spots in the landfill to get the stuff in the right area. And it's great because we saw Alaska Scrap come in there. We got a mountain of metal they're trying to haul away. It's a mountain of metal. So I hear you. I wish it was true that there wasn't any trash left in the borough, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case. But it was impressive, the record numbers. And I think our staff did a really remarkable job making the best of a tough situation. I mean, Mr. Hayes and I sat in the line a couple times because we're like, we're not going to try to bypass this. We're just going to sit and see how this goes. Because there was some feeling that we were weighing loads. We were not. I could explain to you why that was happening because we sat there and timed vehicles and watched the process and figured out where we were losing time. But it wasn't actions of our staff. It was just what people were trained to do. And 10 seconds every vehicle adds up when you have hundreds of vehicles. So it was quite an interesting thing. I would like to just see us spread it out over time so that we can keep our staff requirements, contract costs, overtime, et cetera, down. So we're not incurring those costs. But I think all in all, it was really remarkable to talk to some of the people and hear their stories about how this really helped them out. Because I think they were real issues. And it was good to see them being able to dispose of something that had been in their yard for 20 years, because that's kind of what we were going for, right? So I think there was a lot of benefit from that perspective. I'll stop there.
If I may, I think that there are actually a couple people that Jason's group targeted and mentioned to have them bring their trash down. And one guy said he made 37 trips, but his yard's apparently cleaned out. So that's really good news.
Let's hope.
It accomplished something. So. But yeah, I think there were some good things out of it. There really was some benefit, but that is the key. It's the hard costs that are the problem. It's the revenue is one thing, but the hard costs are an issue that in that 2-week period represents a cost that we could potentially avoid. So.
Deputy Mayor.
Do we think the overtime was more than 50 grand? I don't think it was, but I'd like to see those numbers later. I guess where I'm going with this is I don't think anybody thought you can only create municipal waste so fast. I don't think when we talked about doing this program up front that we ever thought people would be bringing more household trash or diapers. The point of it was similar to the junk car program, right? To help people clean up their yards. We got 600 and something junk and trash complaints in the valley. Hopefully we got rid of 10% of those or 5, I don't know, right? So I'd like to see those overtime numbers when you get them. They don't got to be tonight, but go ahead.
48,000.
Perfect.
To the mayor, 48,000. So in the weekly post that we put out on October 25th, that's detailed. So we detailed the fiscal impact through revenue loss. We talked about what was collected by category. We also explained like the decant fees, the equipment costs, supplies, services, labor hours, all of that. We even broke it down by location. So all of that is on the borough website under manager documents, under the October 25th post. And that's why we wanted to get that out there. There's a lot of benefit. We're just looking at, okay, now how do we still realize that benefit, spread it out over time and reduce our hard cost?
I agree 100%. I think the benefit on this program was probably better than the car one, to be honest with you. I think there was more. Of course, you could give us the tonnage too, and you probably got that, but I'm willing to bet there was far more tonnage in this program than there ever would be in 250 cars. I'm open to the coupon program. The thing that I didn't like about it up front is we spend a lot of money sending it out. It is too low. It needs to be increased drastically. And then we have a lot of people. I mean, we've changed how we accept payment for property taxes this last couple of years because not everybody in the valley or borough is lucky enough to have a mailbox, right? Not everybody even can get a coupon, to be honest with you. So that's worrisome to me, but I think this program works great. And the other reason is, you look at the Kenai Peninsula Borough and Fairbanks, it's free for them for their entire boroughs year round. There is nothing in this world that's free. I understand that, but we do have parts of our borough where it's free. And so it's a benefit to you if you live rurally, but if you live in the core area, you don't get the benefit. So yeah, I would like to know, do we have the tonnage available?
Go ahead, sir.
Through the mayor, I have it by category, which I don't think is what you're looking for.
Just a total.
I'll just C&D was over 1,500 tons, metal over 2,300 tons, tires 600 tons, about 6,090 bags, so that's not a weight. MSW, we had about 415 ton, and then about just over 8,000 cubic yards of material, and that's probably predominantly your transfer.
I can also tell you it's about 380 tons per day. I think that was the average. So if you
Four-
multiply that by the 16 days, you'd come up with that, or 15 days. you'd come up with that.
4,815 tons. So yeah, substantially more than 250 cars. So, and it costs $2,000 less. Awesome. Good to hear.
And 985 refrigerators, if anybody's in.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Okay. I just wanted to get the tonnage so that I could figure out that there was a lot more value in this than it, this was a good value. Thank you.
Okay, Assemblyperson 2 or McKee, which ones you had? McKee.
I'm on.
Okay, I couldn't see which. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Obviously, it was a tremendous success by the fact that there was so much participation. But when I saw the price tag on that thing, I just, oh my dear God, what have we done? Couldn't you do something like with the coupons, like we've talked about, you were saying about having, not everybody has a mailbox. Well, if you had them there as people drove in and they were given a coupon, they'd have to, who cares where they got it? But you could do it that way and there would be no mailing costs involved at all. But I'm hoping we don't have to, I'm a teacher, was a teacher, and accountability is a huge thing. And I hate that thing where it says, well, if I just screw around, don't, take my time and everything, then I'll get in and somebody else will have to pay the freight on this. I don't like that because it promotes putting it off on somebody else. I think as an introductory thing, it was great. Like y'all come, bring everything you got. But I think we need to kind of close the parameters and dial it down a little bit, because if you got somebody making 37 trips, geez Louise, and people coming from elsewhere. I don't know if they came from Seattle, but I heard they came from Anchorage to unload their stuff. Like, geez, I don't think we can afford to be that generous. Maybe I'm wrong. I wish I'd have been able to take advantage of it, because I would have been there with 37 trips. But I think it's a bit much. But anyway, congratulations on the one hand, and we need to tighten it up on the other.
Yeah. I do think there's ways to mail a coupon out. We talked about some ideas, and nothing in stone at this point, but one of the options would be, in the past, we tried to look at mailing it with the blue tax card, a post on there, but there wasn't enough room to make it work. So one of the options is to actually put some sort of a coupon in the mailer when the tax bill goes out, which happens in May or June roughly, right around that time frame. If you put a coupon in there, the mailing's already paid for. You're just going to pay for the coupon, which you have to pay for anyway.
Yeah.
And then it goes to everybody who has a parcel. So there's a way to get one to everyone. The question is, what would the value of that coupon be? And that would allow everyone to use it. And then, of course, I think to give them a longer period of time, you'd want to do it over a whole year. So maybe it's from June 1 to, or July 1 to June 30th or something like that. So it matches the fiscal year, might be an approach.
Yeah, so like Mike was saying, you just don't have this big bump of overtime and it's just sort of levels
Right.
out.
That way it's just part of the everyday work ethic.
Yeah.
There's no extra costs involved. There's not overtime. There's no cost to get contractors in to help. We just make it as part of the normal routine, and everybody gets an opportunity to have a free dump. I think we would actually reach more people that way, because one thing that we did notice is that there was a core group. If I remember the number right, there was about 17,000 cars that visited, but we estimated that only about between 9,000 and 10,000 of those were actual one-time use. Everybody else was doubling up. So it didn't meet a lot of people in the community that it could have. So I think this other approach might give that a better stretch so more people could take advantage of it.
Yeah, and kind of limit them. I mean, don't give somebody 37 coupons. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Back to the coupon program. So I got another concern with that. So Miss Cheyenne's not here tonight, but I think we spend 10, 12, 13,000 bucks a year mailing the coupon out. Now, we did talk about sending out with property tax bills, but that worries me too. We only about half of our residents in the valley do own a home. So, and I will say renters pay property taxes too. They pay it to their landlord, then their landlord pays it for them, right? So I don't think it would be fair to leave out people that don't own a home. And that was one of my concerns up front with mailing it with property taxes. But again, and we can get these numbers from Cheyenne in the future, but I think it's 10, 12, 13,000 bucks a year that we spend on the mailer, give or take.
Yeah, it's
Go ahead.
10,000. I know it's
10,000.
it's just
Okay.
under 10,000.
Yeah. So, yeah, of course, go ahead.
So through the mayor to Mr. Young, it's actually the tax mailing, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 30,000 because we pay first class postage to all of the tax accounts. The benefit to that is the card is about 10 or for what
Our
you
mailing is about,
That's right.
10 for the card is
But
about
when,
10,000.
when we mail the tax bill, so in the past, folks are like, put it on the blue card, which is the tax assessment notice that goes out in February, I think, or into January. That's where it's difficult because that's not first class postage, and we just don't have a lot of room on that little postcard. And we do postcards because it's cheaper to mail. The tax bill that goes out at the end of June, beginning of July, is first class postage envelope. So we could shove another piece of paper in there that's a landfill coupon if we want to, and it won't cost us any more than the printing fees, to print
Right.
those flyers. And Cheyenne's already confirmed that. That runs $30,000-$40,000. So we were like, yeah, this would be a way we could just stuff the envelope. But you're right, it's only going to go out to tax accounts. So that would be a challenge. But at the same time, I don't know how many other mechanisms we want to develop and or how much money we want to spend administratively to create a program. So that's why we're trying to leverage what we already have.
Thank you.
Assemblyperson Fonoff, go ahead.
So to give an idea, so Mr. Ortiz was showing us a little map how they can create fairly quick who is the bad guy and who has the case and things like that. Why don't we, instead of mailing and everything like that, why don't we right at the scale house have ability where everybody has an ID with them and their resident address, regardless then who the owners are not, and they're eligible for like the $20 credit. And once they used it with a valid ID, they used it up annually. And then that applies evenly, whether it's a renter or homeowner. And we save on the mailing. All it is, we just track the thing. So they pay the bill of $80. We just counted the $20 off of it, or 25 or whatever the number, once a year. Simple. And we spread it over time, even if it's $50, but then not everybody's going to take advantage of it. But how wise that would be to just track it. I think that's as simple as it could be.
So through the mayor to the assembly, what we'll do is we'll be bringing a resolution forward for this coupon idea. We'll put a number on it. You can amend it, change it. You're going to establish it. We can talk about the parameters of it. So we'll bring something forward. If you have some ideas, communicate those to me or Jeff, but probably me individually as we prepare that. I suspect that's something we would probably bring in the January, February timeframe. And I just had a text from a former assembly member who said free dump on your birthday. So apparently folks have ideas.
I got the same
Do you
text.
got this text too? So,
Madam Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, what about some type of online coupon? Maybe where you could it would register your IP address or something, so you could only get it once. Type of blockchain type thing or something. But where you could download your dump coupon online. Just an idea that was texted to me bare seconds ago.
Okay, sure. Assemblyperson McKee, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just briefly, when like, for instance, a grocery store says, they print a coupon in the newspaper there, and eggs, bring this and you'll get 50 cents off the dozen eggs. But when you get to the store, you don't have one. They just give you one. So that's why I was thinking, kind of like what Dimitri was saying, just have it at the scale house and rip it off and do it there. And it would be, you'd save mailing. Everybody would get one. It wouldn't discriminate amongst who had property and who doesn't. It wouldn't. I just think that would be the way to do it. And I don't know how to keep track of that. But what Tim was just talking about online stuff. If you have too many ways to get the coupons to people, I think it's going to it's going to go upside down. There's just going to be too many ways to do it. If it were me, I'd have them, hey, here it is. You bring your truck. Here's your coupon right here at the scale house. Business over, done, and on. Anyway, that's would work for me.
Yeah. Any other question? Yes, go ahead, sir.
One thing through the mayor. One thing that I've seen in the past, similar to your idea, is where vehicles come in and there's a camera that takes a license plate and actually identifies the vehicle, and so it'll know how many times it came through. Now, we don't have that technology, but my point is your idea or that type of thing is out there. We would just have to explore if that's something we can do, because I think it'd be terrific if someone could just pull in, flash an ID, it gets scanned in the computer, and boom, it's, we know who it is. That's a very simple method. We just aren't there technology-wise, but I think that we can find a way to do something like that. Just a thought.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, my final comment on this, we've all sponsored cleanups in our district since we were elected, or at least I have a few and I know others have. So, and those of us that are new to the body probably will be soon, but what about maybe working with the planning department and actually finding out who some of these junk and trash violations are and actually sending them a letter and saying, hey, we're going to give you access to this? Because when we do these community cleanups, they also cost a lot of money, and they should. It makes the community a better place as a whole. It's fine. Nothing we're going to do is going to be free, right? But maybe that's a way that we could help the planning department beat that list up and help a lot of neighborhoods clean up. But anyway, go ahead, Mr. Ortiz.
Through the mayor to assembly member, yeah, we actually did that. So a few weeks prior to, once the assembly passed that, to make it the landfill free for those 2 weeks, we pulled every junk and trash case that we have. We sent out a letter, and it was basically a nice letter saying, hey, you have an existing junk and trash case. This is your time to take advantage of the free dump. And we also tracked the statistics from before and after. So we had 343 letters that were mailed, and we had 30 cases that were closed out. And so, again, that was putting just so, in anticipation that the question would be asked from assembly, we went out before and had pictures of all the properties, and then after. And so we had those statistics and pictures, and we're able to quantify all that.
Your team is amazing.
Appreciate it.
I'm glad that I wish you would have thought about that before. I'm grateful that you guys did. So, I took using the average. You said how many fridges, Mike? 900? You said? Yeah. So
It said refrigerators. I don't know
Okay.
if that was refrigerators or just all types of appliances, but
Yep.
I can vouch there were many refrigerators
Using-
that came
Just
through.
refrigerators.
So-
Just refrigerators.
using the average weight of 300 pounds, that's another 135 tons. So my math's got us at 4,950 tons. Plus we cleaned up 30 sites that are no longer on that list. A car is going to be 2 tons at the most, 500 tons. So what I'm seeing is we cleaned up 10 times more trash with this program than we did the car program. Plus we got 30 off the list. So I think we need to look at this again in the future.
Further questions? Yes, Assembly Person 2, go ahead.
So what I'm getting out of the discussion that what I'm listening to right now is, how do we limit the people from bringing their trash in? And what I would tell you, in my opinion, that's absolutely wrong. I want everybody to bring in as much garbage as they can, all the garbage. I want them to have 85 trips, because I want to get rid of all the trash in the borough. And to limit them down to one trip, or a $20 card or a $50 card, that's not getting done with what we're trying to really do. And I think what we're trying to do is clean the borough. So I'm not so much in favor of limiting the amount that they can bring. And Jason just testified to that. He said there was this many cases of garbage. Now, if you're going to give them $50 to clean, $50 can't clean nothing. That's your pickup truck. So what good is that? So I think we need to look at it and not limit the folks to bring their stuff. But maybe what we need to do is figure out how to make it a better way for them to bring the stuff into the landfill, so it's not overwhelming the staff and all of the mechanisms that it takes to do. but not tell them that they can only bring $20 worth. That's not, I don't think that's any of our intent at all.
All right. You have any parting comments, sir?
Yeah, no, I think I would like to say one thing. There's a variety of ways to do a cleanup. I think there's ways that'll be beneficial, and even as you just said, if we can eliminate some of that hard cost, there's ways to do it. Some people in the community need help. We need to figure out how to do that. I agree with you. A coupon to everybody may not solve some of that, but maybe there's a way working with Jason's department, if we want to do that, to help certain individuals that need help and still give the rest of the community something. Maybe it's a coupon or maybe it's some other method, but that way everybody benefits to some degree. And again, there's a variety of ways to do this. I think the key is what do we want to accomplish? Are we trying to help those people in those places that need the cleanup? Are we trying to give just a free dump to everyone in the community? What do we want? I think if we figure out what we want, we can find a way to get there that will be a reasonable cost that won't hurt us in the long run. So I guess that really is the bottom line from my
I think with 600 cases of junk and trash, I think we got an issue.
I couldn't argue with
That.
you.
That's not a bag of trash, I promise you.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very
sir.
much.
Uh-huh. So now we'll go ahead and thank you, community council members, for hopefully what we've been presenting helps you and encourages you, but we are here to hear from you tonight. And so I don't know, I'll let whoever wants to start, you can sit where you are. The only thing I would ask is if, when you give your name, if you would just say what community council you are with, so we have a good handle on how activity. And Caleb, do we have anybody online that looks like they may want to testify? No, okay. Alrighty, so, yeah, somebody start, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Fred Hirschman from Glacier View Community Council, and next to me is Gary Wolski, who's our Community Council president. I want to jump in right now just to kind of follow through with the discussion that we just had.
Sure.
Community councils are a wonderful way to know where the trash is in the community, where all the junk vehicles are in the community, where the private lands that have a lot of mess on them. And I would really encourage, as part of Mike's problem of having it all balled together, is use the system that we already have for community cleanups and expand it. And instead of just having them in June across the whole borough, maybe spread them out. I know June is a good time for us because the vegetation hasn't leafed out. But if we really had the ability to have, a couple of dumpsters put up at Glacier View that could be specific for refrigerators or could be specific for heavy metal, a lot of that junk could be cleaned up. In the past with our cleanups, we've only done public lands, and for a while we were only allowed to do borough property. But if it is expanded to private lands, I think each of the community councils could do a wonderful job of identifying the areas where they have a lot of trash and getting that trash in and doing it in a time that's spread out over time. So that one point to what's just being discussed, I think, should be thrown out. It should be listened to. A couple of other things. We have, since the last meeting, we've had 2 community council meetings. There's been a tremendous amount of interest in our community council about cleaning up vehicles in particular. So even though I'm hearing from Rob a fairly strong thing of, clean up other trash and vehicles, I'd sure like to see the assembly consider vehicles and consider the trash, because they're both big problems. We've already counted in our community over 400 and donate their time, especially if the borough is able to help some. Because we're remote, it costs a lot more to get a vehicle down from where we are than it would be in the core area, but we're certainly willing to volunteer-wise put into that. A couple of people have talked about crushing the vehicles up there, but we need flatbeds to bring them down to wherever they're going to be dumped. Mark Fleener, who lives close to where 350 vehicles are, he would love it if there was the ability. He would pull all those vehicles out, and if we had a car crusher that was mobile, that if it's available in the state, he thought that would be just a skookum way to get those vehicles out. One other thing that I'm thinking as we're talking about this, not all the vehicles are on private land. with the 350 vehicles around Street Mountain Lodge, a number of those have washed onto state land. So, we like to have the ability to take this junk out, whether it's on private land or on state or borough land or in the federal right of way. So that's a few of the comments that I'm just thinking of as the discussion's going on. Gary, well, anything?
Good. You said it all.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for us?
Yeah, any questions of Glacier View? Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, Patty, go ahead.
Yeah. Patty Fisher with Middle Lakes Community Council. I'm impressed with what I've heard tonight. I can't quite believe that all of these things that we talked about in August have actually become studies or considered as an option for solving these problems. The draft policy, I am not keen on the dashboard. Using nonprofits, recycling abandoned vehicles. Mr. 2 was a great idea. I'd love to see a whole bunch of rebar come out of that. And the diversion programs. In Middle Lakes, we've, of course, like everybody else, we've had members of the community come and talk to us about properties that are being used for drug houses, prostitution, vehicle, probably stolen vehicles. And those are issues. Also, we have a huge problem with vehicles being abandoned in our community park or stranded there. So we're managing it all, but I strongly hope that Jason carries and everyone carries through with what you've suggested so far. It's really a good start.
Okay. Does anybody have a question for Meadow Lakes? Okay, who wants to be next? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Will Hastings from Tenina Community Council. Junk and trash, obviously a very big problem. We care a lot about that, but it's a nuisance problem. The issue that brought us out here is about life and safety. Okay, so the properties that we're interested in are into a whole new category. I echo the concerns about the dashboard, but in viewing the dashboard, what became apparent to me was that categories mean a lot. So junk and trash are a large portion of that dashboard. But the dashboard isn't broken into another subcategory of properties that are life and safety issues. So for instance, you may go to code compliance and the properties that have illegal activities that are emanating from them, and that's what we're really concerned about, all fit with having a lot of junk on them, right? That's probably the first part that happens to it. They become a haven for that type of activity. You'll go to code compliance, but there's a law enforcement component to that too, and they have a different part to this. Glacier View just mentioned about basically how community councils have good intelligence of where junk and trash reside. And so what I'd like to do is, last time we were here, we presented very quickly because of time, but we presented a straw man for something to be considered about the baddest of the bad. That's what we're concerned about. Properties that have junk and trash and are a nuisance, we'd like them cleaned up, but the ones that are really affecting our community council are the ones where we have life safety issues that are also emanating from them. We may have quite a bit. I saw on there tonight, there's a lot of junk and trash issues, but we're only aware right now of 1 to 2 of all of those that are going into the category of life safety, where you have drugs and narcotics, where you have other illegal activities, where you've had, in one case, the house has been burned down multiple times, and each time the fire department has to go, They have to have police escort with them because it's so dangerous. Those are the ones we're interested in. And so on earlier when Mr. Ortiz was talking about the standard operating procedure, glancing through that, there definitely needs to be, in these cases, in these specific cases, very firm deadlines on when it meets that type of level of life and safety, that there's a timeline between when that's initiated and when something needs to go to court on that. But broadening it to every single issue of junk nuisance, right? We're not looking at that. We're looking at properties where the landlord is absent. There is no neighbor versus neighbor. This is somewhere where the landlord is either out of state, or it's in a trust, or it's in something else, but they are not residing on the property. But they're allowing that property to solicit or illegal activities. So we have nothing against all of the good activities that have happened at the borough to try and clean up the properties where landowners want to get them cleaned. But we're talking about, we need some action taken on these properties where we can't, the surrounding property owners cannot live safely. That's what we're interested in. That's where the priority we would like to see the next time when we come before. Hopefully there'll be another meeting where we're talking about this, but we can focus on how we're going to handle those. Thank you.
And Deputy Mayor, you had a question, comment?
I got a question for Mr. Ortiz. So in regards to these types of properties, does our code enforcement, when we do have a lot of illegal activity or any that we're aware of, but we're for sure that this is happening, does code enforcement in your department communicate with the state troopers, Palmer and Wasilla Police, in regards to those properties?
Through the mayor to assembly member, yeah, absolutely. So we call out when we have illegal activity going on. But one of the most important things that we do tell every person is that they need to be documenting, and they need to be the ones that need to be reporting each and every time that there's an illegal activity. And I think I don't want to speak, but I'll paraphrase. I think the troopers talked about how sometimes they respond and how eventually they do get to those areas. And it's important to have those calls coming in consistently for those areas. But again, for the community councils that are experiencing illegal activity, that's not a code compliance situation. Although many of the situations, like Mr. Hastings mentioned, there's a bleed over between what we see, whether it's illegal activity or some mental health stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff that are surrounding many of the code compliance cases that we do see. So a lot of the properties that code compliance are responding to, the troopers are also responding to. And we've worked together. We do have a memorandum of understanding that we're trying to work together with the troopers so that we share information easier, and also quarterly meetings with the troopers so that we can work out some of these problems like this as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mayor? Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, sir. We're being serenaded
Ron.
here, sir, so sorry. I don't know if you can hear it, but we're being serenaded, so anyway, go ahead.
I would like to respond to that. And, when we went to Trappers Creek, because they were trying to get troopers up there, and they have no support up there. And basically the troopers really they don't have enough manpower and stuff. They need another 70. They've got funding for 70 troopers, and they can't find applicants. But one thing that we did take away positive from that meeting was they have an app for your phone. It's called AK Tips. And like the trooper up there, he was really blunt about it. He says, you know what? If you got a house, a drug house, or whatever is going on in your neighborhood, and, there's cars, there's traffic there, all hours of the day and night and stuff, snap some pictures, take a little video, and keep sending it into AK Tips. They're going to see these cars that are going to appear over and over in these pictures and videos and stuff like that, and they're going to start recognizing them on the road. and you're going to get. It's an app that you can state who you are and put all that information down, or you can be completely anonymous. And it's just a really good way to get these vehicles and stuff recognized, because there's so many troopers that do monitor this AK tips, and if they see the same stuff over and over enough, they're gonna be more likely to take care of it. So I just wanted to get that out to all the community councils for sure.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. Sir, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I mean, he said it perfectly. So it's a great tool. I know there's been frustrations about calling into our dispatch. These calls come in sometimes at busy times, and the dispatcher can be very dismissive if there's other things going on. Those AK tips are great because, just as he said, we do get the pictures and the videos, and sometimes that call comes in at high call volume. And when the call volume dips off at 1 a.m. and we're out and about being proactive and we see the same thing, we can then address it. So it is very helpful. And then just to follow up on the staffing, when I was here at the last meeting, I'll just update you guys. Our staffing has not improved. It's actually declined since then. And our B detachment, Palmer Matsu West Trooper Post, is now at 50% staffing. So we're doing the best we can. Since the last meeting, I've taken over a patrol shift on nights. And so I work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. We are, despite our staffing, we are still out conducting proactive patrols in all these community areas that are being reported. So you may not be seeing us because most people sleep at 3 a.m. while we're out and about doing our thing, but we are there. So just keep the tips coming in, the calls coming in.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty.
Thank you, sir, for your service.
Thank you.
Alrighty, sir, go ahead.
Roger McCambridge, Willow Area Community. I like what you guys have started. It's a good start. The draft that Mr. Ortiz has given us, there are a few things that are missing, so I'll send him something in an email on that.
Okay.
But my biggest fear is we're coming up with these great plans and everything else, and you're getting ready to write a budget for 24, 25. And through my calculations sitting here right now, if we want to implement the things that we've done, we need at least 8 full-time FTEs to pull off the programs. Because when you talk a program coordinator for each one of these positions, they're going to need at least an admin staff and somebody to go out and do the work with them. It's not just you're hiring one person, because if you're going to be hiring and working all these community organizations, one person can only handle 10 to 12. So please remember that when you're doing your budget, that your minimum you're going to need is 8, because you're going to get to your budget and go, we can't afford 8 people. You guys came up with some really great ideas, but we're still going to have 693 derelict properties. We're still going to have, what you guys have, 350, 400 cars sitting in the neighborhood. And in Willow on my street, I'm still going to have 3 lots with over 600 cars. So we need to, when you do your budget, don't nickel and dime us. Put the money where it needs to go. And the other thing is, we've talked about this recycling, which is great, and giving incentives to the scrap yard. But I think what we need to do, and I don't want to put him on the spot since I'm sitting next to the governor's office, but I think we do need to talk to the state assembly and to the governor and say, listen, we have this problem. Everybody in the state has this problem. Why don't you guys kick a little bit of money in so we can get these scrap dealers so they can actually make a profit and start getting this scrap metal and these refrigerators and these cars out of here. And we can start cleaning up some of these life and death properties, because our firefighters in a lot of our boroughs are all volunteers.
Right.
It's praise those guys and gals for running into a burning house and trying to save somebody. But when they're running in through 27 junk cars, crap, garbage in the lawn and running into a meth house, you know, they're not coming home. That's on us because we didn't take care of these problems. So please don't nickel and dime us when you're starting to do it, and start reaching out to the state itself for the funding.
Well, shall we jump to the state and see what kind of commitment we can get, shall we?
No commitment. That's the proper response in my position, is to say no commitment. But what I will say is that and I've said this before in public meetings, that what impresses the governor the most with issues like this is first communities coming together and coming up with creative solutions to local problems. The governor is a very big local control guy, and he is far more likely to support programs and when he's looking at his budget for communities that have first you know, done some groundwork, some grassroots efforts, not just coming hat in hand with budget requests. So, and that's what I heard tonight, which is a great start. A lot of good conversations, a lot of programs in the works that you're going to continue to look at. I had a question for Mr. Attorney on the DOC contact, and just if you need help with getting a meeting with DOC on that program, please let me know, and I can help you with that. The other issue that I wrote down in my head was this junk car recycling program, which sounds like the borough is looking at potentially some borough property for that. But along with that will probably come permits from DEC and other things. That is definitely a place where the governor would want his agency to make that process as easy as possible. So please let me know, if you need help with that. And then another item I wrote down in my head was the in terms of junk on state land. I know that DNR has worked with groups in the past and private contractors to clean up state land if they're interested in doing that. So that is definitely a possibility if there are junk cars or other things that are on state property. There is a way to work with DNR or whoever owns that property. It's usually DNR to get contractors or others in there to clean that up if that's also a priority for DNR. So, but I mean, I don't discount the desire for people to want state funding for these issues. But I think people also have to realize that over the last few years, the way that we have paid for additional state programs is to take PFD money from people like the 85-year-old woman who can't pay someone to remove junk trash from her property. So there is just like having free dump day, it's not really free. And when you're asking for the state to pay for these types of programs, it's also not free. We have, well, it's interesting how different people present this, but we have a balanced budget only because we are not paying a statutory PFD law that exists on the books still. In other words, the state legislature is filling the gap of our state budget with PFD money, which is coming from regressively, who it's hitting the hardest is the elderly and the poor. And those actually are many people who have these junk trash problems. So I'm not suggesting that if they got their statutory PFD, they wouldn't have a junk problem. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that we want to try to clean this up, and so we have to be creative in how we do that. Is try to be creative and to figure out how we can incentivize that. I really enjoyed the conversations about how we get misdemeanors involved, nonprofits. These are all great ideas. I too didn't really like the dashboard as a Matsu resident, although I also thought like the idea of neighbors being pitted against neighbors. I'm pretty sure the neighbors know where the junk and trash is, that because they live next to it. So I'm not sure if I quite understood that, but yeah, having a big red mark on your property probably isn't the greatest thing in the world. Anyway, I'm happy to take questions. Those are just kind of my thoughts from listening. And I know I talked too long, but hopefully that helped.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Any parting remarks from any of the community councils or anything you wanted to add or ask or anything? Yes, go ahead.
Yes,
sir.
ma'am. Will Hastings for tonight Community Council. We're kind of picking at the edges, okay? The scenario that's happening to us is you have a property. The property owner does not live there. The property elicits illegal activity because of this absenteeism. If you call troopers, they're going to go after the drug users. If you call code compliance, they have no one to really go there to deliver anything to, okay? Because the property owner isn't there. But the property owner, in effect, is aiding and abetting all of these other activities. We just want to make that clear, is that that's the category of the problem that we have. And that's the type of issue we need to solve. That was what was within what we presented last time. So if we look at it and nibble at it at the edges, this type of problem isn't going to get fixed. There's multiple agencies that are involved in developing the picture of what that property is enabling, between troopers, code compliance, child protective services, a community council knowing what's going on. And that's why it needs, these particular properties need a whole of government approach, so that, yeah, it'd be great if when we call troopers, that they catch the drug user, but in the end, it's about what the property owner is allowing to happen on the property. And there's not going to be many of those, but there are some. And that's the one we need a process for going after. And that's going to be the toughest one to handle. So, next time when we have a meeting, we would like to focus more upon that. How are we going to tackle something like that? Because it is a life and safety issue. When you cannot go to you're applying for a job and you can't make it there because it's been blocked by a drug user who is not a resident of the property, right? But the property owner or trust has been notified many, many times that this is a problem, and they're doing nothing to aid the government, like, hey, allow warrantless searches or allow cameras to be on there or something. Then they are part of the problem. And that is happening. It's not theoretical, it's actually happening. And that's what we want to have some focus on. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Jason, do you know of your code compliance issues that you have? How many are absentee owners? Do you have any idea?
Madam Mayor, I don't know how many are absentee. I mean, if code compliance officers and I sat down and kind of looked at cases, we know like that, but actually tracking statistics, I don't know that statistic, but I couldn't even begin to guess, actually. I apologize. I could get that information though for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Patty, go ahead.
Yeah, very briefly, I strongly support Willow's comment on funding for code compliance. I should have said that earlier. I think that is what is going to make all of these issues be solved, or help make these issues be solved. When I made the comment about the dashboard, the reason I'm not thrilled about the dashboard is I think that money could be more used better being put directly to cleanup issues. And then my final comment is, yes, I hope we all get back together maybe in the new year and hear the next step on what has been a very good start with all the work that has been done by the borough up to this, for this meeting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have any comments? Okay. All right. Assemblyperson 2, go ahead.
I would like to ask Mr. Smolden. We get what they call dust control money off of car registrations, and we use that for paving roads and, all kinds of other projects. Is there a way to, every car that's sold, they put a $200 fee on for disposal, and then we can collect that money to help incentivize recycling?
Through the mayor to Assembly Member 2, there is a way to extract money from anyone in any way possible with legislation.
So do you feel like you could sponsor that project?
I don't anticipate the governor would sponsor legislation to take $200 from people every time they purchased a car, but I don't speak for him on that. I don't anticipate he would. However, there are 9 legislators who represent the valley. Maybe one of them would.
Yes, sir.
There's so like you go out and you pick this junk up, and that junk always has a VIN number on it. Whether they're all over the car, so you can't, the layman cannot get rid of the VIN number. But there's nothing you can do with that VIN number. And so it just seems to me that maybe our problem would be something like that. Maybe it would help.
Go ahead.
I'll just follow up, Madam Mayor. I think that there is a way. The issue is for the state, and this has come up before with abandoned vehicles in DOT right-of-way, is that it's the same issue that the borough has with contacting people and squeezing, blood out of a turnip, getting money from someone who abandons a vehicle. DMV does run those numbers, and there's a small claims, issue that they do and all of that. It's just a matter of whether or not that person pays. So to go back to your idea, that the reality is that a $200 fee on a vehicle, it just seems to me that what ends up happening is the responsible members of society end up paying fees to deal with the problems that irresponsible members of society are causing. So, I had a truck so my point is that if I paid $200 to buy a vehicle and then I ended up, I don't, you know what I'm saying? So somehow we need to figure out a way to encourage those who are irresponsible or don't have the resources to clean up. And if we can help them to do that by incentivizing through a junk and car program, or through nonprofits helping them, or potentially a private business with a recycling capabilities to incentivize that through a business, that would be great.
Thank you, Todd.
Further discussions, questions? Okay, are we ready for wrap it up with mayor and managers and staff last comments? I'll go online for Assemblyperson Hale. Do you have some parting comments, please?
No comment. Thank you, Mayor.
Assemblyperson Denier, parting comments, sir?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I see a lot of positive ideas and stuff. A lot more ideas and stuff to come, but seeing the future meetings and really working something out with the junking vehicle. You know, my dad lives in Maine, and he had sold scrap metal to the junkyards and stuff like that when I was a kid, and that's pretty much how he put food on the table. So when he comes up here, he's asked me, you know, hey, what's copper prices going per pound, or what's number one steel, or number 1, 2, or you know, comp, brass, all these other metals and stuff. It's how much you getting for them up here? It's, oh, you got to pay to have a car taken away. What? And he just can't believe it. He says, why is that? Because he lives in Maine. All their scrap metals go into New Brunswick, Canada, gets put on a boat, goes all the way down through the Panama Canal and all the way to China. And we're a heck of a lot closer to China than New Brunswick, Canada is. And why we can't figure out a way to make this happen. And there's got to, and even just the idea of sending junk back down to the lower 48 and then over, I think we should go directly market it right to them. But other than that, I look forward to more conversation. And I just wanted to thank the Lord. We want to thank you for all of your blessings, for all the trials and tribulations that you refine us by. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your endless love. Please help us to think of the less fortunate, the addicted, the downtrodden. Help us become more patient with each other, to love one another as Christ loved the church. Help us to honor our veterans and our first responders. We pray for our borough, our state, our country. Please help the innocent people in the countries that are at war. We pray for our leaders. May they put their trust in you, Lord. May we pray for wisdom. We pray for our young, that they have a listening heart. We pray for our elders, that they may teach and pass on their wisdom. Pray for a revival, that you will change in lives in our future. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Attorney, parting comments, sir? No? Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments? Assemblyperson 2, parting comments?
I just want to say thank you to everybody for showing up. And then Jason, thank you for the great presentation. I definitely tell you put a lot of work into that.
Mike, parting comments, sir?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To be clear, we will not be rolling out a public dashboard for code compliance cases at this time, just to put some closure to that. And I'm going to shift gears. The Assembly provided some pretty clear direction around private snow that gets pushed into the right-of-way, right? Obviously, thanks to the weather, we have been gifted that glorious return to having this issue. So the Assembly's provided clear direction about wanting some level of enforcement on that. So I just wanted to let the Assembly know that is happening. We've talked to some contractors, road maintenance contractors, to also communicate that we are actively working it. So yesterday, we mailed out 74 letters. About 82% of those were reported by MSB staff, the other 18% by contractors. Today, we received another 67 complaints. About half of those are MSB. So my point to the Assembly is we are working it. Letters are actively going out and staff are actively reporting. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that, just so you understand how that's going to escalate, because this is relatively new. is residents will first get a letter in the mail telling them you shouldn't do this. If we see it again, they'll get a second letter that says you shouldn't do this. And if we see it again, then it will be turned over to code compliance and they will move forward with enforcement and citations. So that's how we expect that to occur. The first round of letters are going out this week based on this weekend's event and the end of last week's event. I'm sure we'll probably have second round letters potentially going out here in the next week. So I've explained to folks, contractors, that we are working to curb and change behavior, but it does take time. These go out in mail. Then there has to be a response and a change in behavior. And in some cases there won't be, and we'll work through the process. So it won't happen fast, but we are actively working it. That's the message, and just wanted to make sure that the assembly is aware of that. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, parting comments?
I do have a couple of election updates for the assembly. I was pleasantly surprised election night how fast the hand count calls started coming in. I didn't know what to expect, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I don't expect them that fast next year because it's going to be a much bigger election.
Right.
And also this year, we started 2 canvas boards. So we don't just have one, we have 2 going. I wanted to start that this year to see how that was going to work out, because next year we're with the state. And I wanted to have that process down because it was the last time we were with the state, the canvas board, a number of them said, we will not do this anymore. This is too much. So I made sure, and we're testing out our 2 canvas boards. It's working well. They did get done canvassing today, and we will start opening up ballots tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to get to counting them tomorrow, but if not tomorrow, Thursday. But as soon as I have new numbers, I will make sure I send the assembly an email.
Assemblyperson Fanoff, parting remarks, sir.
Thank you, everyone that came. It's amazing to see local government working with people. Good example of it when we had gentlemen up in the public comment address some of the issues that he had, and I watched Mr. Hayes follow him to lobby and talk to him and get all the details so the issue can be resolved. I appreciate that. I always had good success working with Mr. Hayes there, and I want to say that it's what we're here for, and that's what makes me want to do it. We had a lot of success, a lot of compliments, how we got a lot of things as a cleanup that kind of benefit the full Mat-Su Borough. Obviously, I learned that we did not do too much when it comes to severe cases like you talked about. And I think for that, I mean, we need to come work with the state, legal, local, and troopers or whatever because one entity can't seem to resolve that issue. So I'll probably talk to you more about that, and hopefully we can come with something where we could start really going after it, because those are the things that really affect specific neighborhood. So I don't think we should drop our attention from things that we did well, continue those, but also say, hey, now we're ready to work on the more severe stuff. And as far as working with the Department of Correction or whatever different departments, I think when it comes to any kind of business or cleanups and things like that, one of the biggest expense thing is the labor part. And if we could utilize more of that, the horsepower, so to speak, to help with the clean up in different kind of ways, whether it's the snow, whether it's cleaning the brush or at the landfill or anything like that. Let's utilize that. And I think we learned a lot today, but we also have taken we've also had a report about good things that we've accomplished. And I want to give credit to everybody who participated and for those who were involved. And thank you for everyone else.
Deputy Mayor, there was some suggestions regarding having another meeting. I don't know if you were maybe thinking about addressing that.
I'm good at that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to let the clerk help on that one. Real quick question before we discuss tonight's meeting anymore. Quick question for the clerk. Do we know the approximate cost? Yeah. Do we know what the approximate cost of the hand count was, Lonnie? That's okay. Do we know what the approximate cost of it was?
I do not have that in front of me.
30 to 40 grand or?
I don't have that in front of me.
Looking for it. So many folks don't know this, and for those of you that don't, we were previously in elections prior to this, we were leasing machines to do the counting for us. I believe we were spending 74 grand a year to lease those machines approximately from a company in a different country. So I wanted to take a minute and tell the clerk's office what an amazing job they did. The hand count went flawless, from my understanding at least. We'll see what the final costs are, but I think they're going to be substantially less than 70-something thousand a year. And the neat thing is the money stayed in the community. It's with people here locally that signed up and went through training to be a part of that process, and they got paid to do so. And so whatever that cost is, I'll look forward to hearing it. Oh, 28,000. Okay. So much better than sending 70 something. And again, Lonnie, from the bottom of my heart, you guys, it was a lot to put on you. And you did amazing. So I hope your whole team knows that. I think everybody in our community would be excited to know we saved almost 50 grand and we kept all the money local. And so that's pretty awesome. Back to this, when I asked to have this meeting earlier this spring and summer, I had no idea that this is where I was going to go. This is amazing. I want to focus on a couple of numbers that are really awesome. In less than 120 days, we closed out 30 cases of the junk and trash approximately with this cleanup. We 250 cars, 5,000 to 6,000 tons of other trash, all for, it looks like about $98,000, and obviously a ton of blood, sweat, and tears from everybody in this room. I'd like to set code enforcement up for success in the future. I know we're not taking any sort of official action tonight, so Mike's probably just looking for head nods right now so that we can prepare for budget season. But if we were to, or would anybody else have an appetite for, I would like to see where our code enforcement can use their own discretion and go to sites in the future who are junk and trash sites or whatever it may be and say, hey, you have X amount of days to participate, so we're not having to pay a lot of overtime. You have X amount of time to take part in this program, right? You could take your stuff to the dump and show them this from code enforcement. Would other assembly members think that that's a good idea? Okay, so we got some head nods. We got 4 head nods in the room, and we got all night. So maybe we could look at doing that in the future. And I think that would help us get those areas clean pretty fast. Really, I love the dumpster idea. We've done it in my district. I've sponsored that program in my area. The sad thing is it's very expensive. We have to pay the companies to bring them. At least with what we just did, folks were paying on their own to get it to the dump, right? And then unfortunately, one of the dumpsters was damaged on one of our cleanups that we were doing in my community, and so we had to pay some damage fees for that too. But it is a great idea. I like what we just did because everybody brought their stuff to it. I got to channel my inner George McKee, my all-time favorite assembly member here. Serious. I wish I had that T-shirt right now. I do. I don't want to sound like a tidy pants fiscally or whatever. Everybody knows I am, so I don't have to beat that dead horse. But we did all of this in the last 20 or 120 days or less for less money than the cost of one FTE for 1 year. So I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. I think one FTE for 1 year costs more than both these programs just cost combined. And I think we did a lot of positive for those. So I'll leave it at that. As we come upon budget season soon, I will probably be taking on the role of George McKee. So thank you.
Okay, did you want to talk about, sir, did you want to, yeah. Okay.
I would imagine that Lonnie would probably want to touch on the latter part of January, early February. I'm not quite sure. And I don't know that that's fair to the manager. I will tell you, we're not going to have, you guys can do whatever you want. So we did a lot of positive this season. I think we're going to do a lot more positive next season because we won't be behind the ball. We've got new ideas coming forth, and we'll have all next spring and summer and fall to do it. This year, I'm so happy with what we got done in such a short amount of time. But in all fairness to the manager and to the clerk, I think they should propose an idea of when it should be.
We do that next week. I just don't have the full calendar in front of me right now.
And then it's off the subject of this, but and the manager already knows how I feel, but we got to get the same type of involvement with our utility companies and permitting. And so I do hope that we'll be having one of those meetings in late winter, long before spring time, because we want to make sure that our utility companies are ahead of the ball when it comes to permitting and being set up for success. And I know Mr. Ortiz needs to play a big role in when that is. So I did want to mention that I hope that we can set something like that up for no later than February. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
So to be clear, you want an assembly meeting for that, or you want a meeting with the utilities with staff for that?
A meeting with staff will be fine. Yeah, it's fine. I don't think if you don't want to have a special meeting, that's fine, but just so that we have all the players in the room and we can get ahead of the curve on permitting and right away before.
Jason, go ahead.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Yacht. We started a monthly meeting with utility companies. We do them regularly. Almost every company is in attendance. We're working with the utility companies actually right now to do a potential grant. It's something that would have to get approved through the assembly. I could talk to you more about it, but definitely have discussion and we're already on top of that.
Thank you.
Any other parting remarks from anybody? Okay, with that, then if there's no objection, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:23. And thank you all for coming.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.